Good afternoon and welcome to the Rapid City Legal and Finance Committee meeting for Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. I'd like to start with a roll call and determination of quorum, please, Stacy.
Here.
Here. Yes. Thank you. Now's the time to adopt the agenda. If any changes or corrections or additions or subtractions need to be done, I'll hear from any seated committee member. If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt today's agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Laurenti, second by Drury to adopt today's agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now's the time for general public comment. This is a time for anyone in the audience to address the committee on any item currently not on the agenda. I currently have no speaker request forms. Am I missing anyone? No, we're going to move on to our agenda. Consent items today consist of items 1 through 13. I'll open up public comment on consent items 1 through 13. I currently have no speaker request forms. Am I missing anyone on consent items 1 through 13? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. We're moving on now to consent items. Consent items 1 through 13. Are there any items that a committee member would like pulled for separate consideration? 3. Chair recognizes Alderman Laurenti.
Item 2, please.
Chair recognizes Alderwoman Drury.
Item 3, please.
All right. Any other items? The chair, if no one else would pull it, I'd like to pull item number 9. No other items. I'll entertain a motion to approve consent items 1 through 13, except items 2, 3, and 9.
So moved.
I've got a motion by Laurenti and a second by Drury to approve consent items 1 through 13, except items 2, 3, and 9. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is to approve a resolution 2017-090, a resolution declaring 108 East Main Street as surplus and appointing freeholders to appraise the property. Chair would like to recognize Alderman Laurenti.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may, I'd like to ask the legal question on this particular item, please.
All right.
Joel, as we briefly discussed as I came in, can you break down what this ties the city into specifically? What's going to be done here once we surplus this land, and how far does this approval go?
Well, this approval really just starts the process. As I indicated, we'll then sit down and negotiate with the Economic Development Group, whether this will be a long-term lease or a transfer of the title. And when we have something more concrete about how it'll actually look and what the structure of it'll be, then we would bring that back to you. As you can see from the item on the agenda, the first step is really to say the property is surplus. That allows us to put together a board of freeholders and try to determine a value for the property so we can have that at least moving forward. Although, as most of you are aware, we bought it within the last 10 years and we know what we paid for it, so that's a pretty good starting point on what the value or what the price should be.
So what was that purchase cost? I'm sorry, I don't know if it's in the documents, but
I mean, Pauline can correct me, but as I recall, it was about 1.4 or.
And that was in what year? 2012. So it was 1.4 million in 2012. So suffice to say that it's above that in 2017. So my other question to you then is, does this allow staff or the mayor's office to do anything other than preparing this land for surplus?
Correct. There's several ways to dispose of the property once it's surplus, and then I think the intent, though, is to negotiate and bring back an agreement. Normally, we could hire a realtor, we could auction it. We're not going to auction it, and I think we'll discuss with them, like I said, and any agreement to transfer it or to lease it would have to come back to the council.
So nothing legally binding for this by the city can be done without council approval after it's been surplused?
Yes, that's, I believe.
Okay. I yield. Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, Joel, just a follow-up question that too. If the city council approves announcing this or putting this as, declaring it as surplus, does that mean the city council then has to do something with it, or can it remain as surplus for a while?
I think it can remain surplus for a while. If for some reason we don't proceed with this project and you want to do something different with it, I think you can certainly change your mind and decide not to dispose of the property until you find a better use for it.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on item number 2.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Laurenti to approve item number 2, a second by Armstrong. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3. Item number 3 is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign agreement with Vigilant Analytics for the crime analysis services. Chair would like to recognize Alderwoman Drury.
Thank you. Could I ask Pauline a question, please?
Yes, you may.
Is this just a yearly thing that comes up, Pauline, for contracting services with the police department?
That's my understanding, yes.
Or maybe I should ask
Mr. Hedrick?
Mr. Hedrick, could you just explain this a little bit? This is a year by year, and it probably saves the force money by contracting this out versus having someone on staff?
Yes, we've been doing this for the last, I believe we started right around the 2010 timeframe, and this company that we've set up with for the last couple years, they've just required an annual renewal. So there is a little bit of a increase in the contract this year, dollar-wise up front, but I shall also add that there'll also be a savings this year because we've cut out any type of overtime that could be accumulated. So while there is a little bit of a bump on the front end, the cost savings in the back end has eliminated overtime.
Okay, I just wanted to understand it a little bit. Thank you very much.
They direct services help us out in regards to where the crimes are happening so we can focus in on it. It's a pretty useful tool.
I yield.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on item number 3.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Laurenti to approve, second by Drury. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9. And before I read item number 9, Mr. Bruce, is it Longfeather? Logfox. Sorry about that. I meant to pull item number 13. I do have a couple questions, but since that's already been sent to council with a recommendation of approval, I'll just ask Monday night. Okay. All right, thank you. So item number 9 is to approve the Youth and Family Services request to change the use of the Community Development Block Grant funding. Any member have a question? If not, then I'll just go ahead and state, because since I'm the one that pulled this, I'll be voting no on this. This is a change, and the money was originally delegated to replace the roof, and now they're asking for a change. And they're taking the allocated money that was approved by the committee and the recommendation at the time for the development grant funding, and they're going to use it for 3 other items that are listed up. And so they're asking for a request to change the use of that money. I'm not in support of that at this time unless I had more information or to understand, because to me it seems like when someone asks for money through this Community Development Block Grant funding, and then they want to go ahead and change it, I just can't really support that. So I do have a couple committee members up here now, so the chair would like to recognize Alderwoman Drury.
Thank you. I do see back in the corner there is a representative here from Youth and Family Services. Could I ask him a question? And I'm sorry, I do not remember your name. So if you could give us your name.
Yep, I'm Mike Smith with Youth and Family Services.
Yeah, Mike Smith. That's a hard one to remember.
I know, thank you. Yep,
Apologize
my
for
middle name
that.
is John, so my parents were not very creative.
Could I ask you what's going to happen to the roof if this money is sent somewhere else?
Yeah, we had it reevaluated, and we feel that we can get a few more years out of it. We think additional funding from other sources may come up to help us repair that. We are trying to maybe knock that one out, as we know it's on a list of some of our capital improvements. And then we have decided that we'd rather put more of our energies and efforts into our 120 East Adams campus expansion. And there's 3 items that we would rather have the money go towards. To make way for a playground, it's going to be like 37,000 square feet of playground. We have to move a HVAC cooler to the roof. So it's not on the children's playground. We want to convert a closet into a little girl's restroom, obviously because, with a bunch of girls and Girls Incorporated, we're converting the closet to a little girl's restroom so they don't have to walk as far, because we do have accidents in our facility. Just trying to make it easier on them. And then we want to make way for 2,000 additional children and 900 adults. We want to install a double-decker convection oven for our increased capacity in our kitchen.
Okay, I was just kind of curious what was going to happen with the roof, because
Yeah.
that was what the money was originally requested for. I yield.
Any further questions? If not, I do have Mr. Dale Tech, I believe, would like to make a comment.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Barb is on her way here, and she may be able to explain this a little more. However, in question of being timely, perhaps continuing this item for 2 weeks might be a better option, so Barb can be here and weigh in on the reason for this request, as well as the legalities of approving it or not. So that'd be my recommendation.
Thank you. Chair would like to recognize Alderman Laurenti.
I make a motion to continue this to the next Legal and Finance meeting.
Second.
I've got a motion by Laurenti and a second by Drury to continue this item to the next Legal and Finance Committee meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That is the end of our consent calendar for today. That was items 1 through 13. We have one item on non-consent, item number 14, and I do have a speaker request form. Jeff, if you want to approach the podium and state your name and your affiliation to the city, and you have the ears of the committee.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Loggy. I'm a national director for the Black Hills Home Builders Association, and also involved in government affairs at Black Hills Home Builders. The electrical code, I know there's probably not a lot of things I can do, but I have been in a meeting all day with affordable housing, and I'd love to see a way to do this. It'd probably have to get involved, and I think Rapid City, for the case of affordable housing, may have to stand up to the state a little bit and do this. This new electrical code's going to probably raise the cost of every house across the board, and remodels, depending on the scope of work, probably $2,000 every house. So we're talking affordable housing every time these codes come through. And like I said, I've been at a meeting, and I'm going right back there on affordable housing. Affordability starts within codes and things like that, and codes are driven by special interest businesses trying to sell a product. Unfortunately, it all trickles down to the customer at the end. So I'm not sure what backup we have. I talked to Brad here a little bit. We have authority within building codes to make changes and make them less exorbitant, I guess. I don't know. I mean, what's the risk? Restrictive, or at least make more common sense. Unfortunately, I don't know if we have a whole lot of plan with the electrical, but I want to inform this committee. I'll probably be back at the city council meeting and do the same. I've been talking to pretty much all the rest of the city council people that aren't here today at that meeting. that, affordability starts down here and at the state, where we can start knocking back regulations and codes and things like that that add cost and no benefit. So I just want to bring that forward. What you decide to do with it, I don't know if we have a lot of discussion, but Brad can probably fill you in on that and that part of it. But thank you.
Thank you. That is the only request I had for public comment on item number 14. Am I missing anyone? Seeing no one, I'm going to close public comment, and since this is the only non-consent item, the committee will now address item number 14. The chair would like to recognize Alderman Laurenti.
Mr. Loggy, if you would, please. I would appreciate it. Excuse my attempts for trying to get my voice out there a little bit. But my question for you is, the National Electric Code, as I understand it, is adopted with contractors as part of that board. Is that correct, the National Electric Code, or not?
Well, it's done in peer. We testified in peer on several different levels of this. Primarily, our issues are arc faults. We feel they create a greater risk to the public than they do good to the public. As far as that goes, we've had firsthand stories, and that's primarily the part of this code. Is now they're going to require arc faults on the 220 circuits, including your dryer. With the modern electronics, these arc faults have not been very compatible. Electricians are getting called back constantly. The person in charge at the state has totally been unwilling to discuss arc faults, and basically said, "Yep, that's what I want. That's what we're going to get." So it's been somewhat of a dictatorship. We're going to probably have to do this legislatively on a different route, but it is. I mean, these codes like these, building codes, at least we can review those down here and make some common sense. And we do a great job down here reviewing building codes, and that's why it takes so long before they get adopted at the state and brought down. But this electrical code with these new arc faults and the existing ones, I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars every time they make an addition. And when we're talking housing affordability,
Understood. So
it's a huge issue. So.
My question to you additionally is, did we have was there somebody at the Building Board of Appeals on this?
You know what?
From your group?
I did not see it until I was here, and I don't know if it would have done a lot of good, because I don't believe the state electrical commission, and I'm not sure if it's state law or just electrical commission, and I'm not sure how that rates whether or not we can make changes to the electrical code. It doesn't sound like it. So sometimes we're beating our heads against a wall at this level. But, I think when we go in the name of affordability, and that's what I'm heading back to talk about at this meeting, is that we need to have a team effort and stand up to some of these things that are just adding additional cost on additional cost and making people not being able to, experience the American dream of home ownership. So, but, it's all the way across the board. So.
All right. I appreciate your input. Thank you. Brad, did you have something on this particular item that you wanted to make light of at the committee level?
Yeah, I'm Brad from Building Services. I went to the State Electrical Commission meeting for the rules hearing, adoption hearing on this, and the gentleman from Spearfish from the Home Builders was at that meeting, and the people at the meeting provided a very robust argument for arc fault. You can see in the ordinance that's before you today, arc fault, there isn't anything in there about arc faults because the building board can't really change it. They can only make it more restrictive, not less restrictive. So and what Jeff said too is the Electrical Commission, they're steadfast in the enforcement of this arc fault rules that have come into place since probably 2009. I think that's when they first came out. And initially, it's true, the technology really wasn't there, and they've improved it somewhat, and it's true too what Jeff said, is there's an additional cost when you use the arc faults in a new house or in a renovation. You're going to have some cost there. And but like you said, you can see in the ordinance that we've got that was before the building board, there aren't any changes to that because really we can't make it less restrictive.
So Brad, let me ask you from a homeowner standpoint, and maybe Jeff can chime in if he needs to, but the faults, you keep bringing up the faults thing. Is this like the GFCI outlets? It's nothing like that. Can you
Yes, it's
explain
very
in
similar to
practical
that.
terms what this means for a builder, what he has to put into a 220 outlet, as Jeff brought up.
What it is it's an electrical outlet, and it's got a GFCI on it. There's actually a little computer chip in there, and it actually reads a spark on a motor or something. So your freezer turns on, there's a little spark, it might trip the breaker on there. And they're more costly than a normal GFCI outlet.
And that's where the cost comes in.
Yeah, and that's
Right,
the cost.
the cost of the
Device
outlet.
are exuberantly more.
So the fuse box is still the same, it's just the outlet now has a fuse control, if you will, as well.
There are different ways you can do it. You can put in a regular outlet and put it at arc fault in the breaker panel. So all the parts are available today, but like Jeff was saying, the parts cost more than a regular outlet or a regular breaker that you might see.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.
Any further comments, questions? I don't see anything from the committee members. I'd like to ask, Brad, I guess I'll start with you. My understanding is that this was already reviewed by the electricians and the Home Builders Association. Were there good meetings letting everybody know this was coming forward? I mean, Jeff is coming forward today. It seems like his concerns should have been met before this, or were they addressed, and he's just making one more attempt at updating us as far as the changes go?
I think this is an official attempt. I don't know that anybody ever showed up at one of those hearings. They talked about it at Building Board a number of times. We had a public hearing for electricians. Only 2 electricians showed up.
All right, thanks. And then, Jeff, if you wouldn't mind answering the question then, are you a licensed electrician?
I am not, and typically this isn't an electrical issue, it's a pass-through. It doesn't cost the electrician anymore because they just bill the builder, who of course in turns passes the extra cost on to the homeowner and the purchaser of the property. And truly the reason I'm bringing this up is awareness that, everywhere along the step there's additional costs, and we really do need to watch it. And I knew we were up against a wall here. We went to the state, we saw how the state acted, and that's why we're probably going to do something legislatively the other direction to give cities like these authority to change some certain things in codes, because I think people need to realize there's immense cost involved. And this is all going back to affordability. It's the biggest catchword right now going across is housing affordability. Like I said, I've been in there all day at this meeting, and it starts at government is really where it starts at. And unfortunately, we're a little too far down the chain to do much, but I want to make all of you aware that we're going to probably continue on all these issues as they come up to change the ones that need to be changed.
Well, thank you, and thank you for doing that, because if it does take a state legislature change, then that's probably where we need it done, and organizations like yours from the business section might get a better traction than the local city governments or the local county. I would like to also, Mr. Tech, if you wouldn't mind addressing a question. As Mr. Logie has indicated, if I understand that since I've been on the city council, the city council or the city of Rapid City has been trying to go and adopt the codes based on state or federal so that we're all in step with this. If we were to adopt this, or when we adopt this after second reading, because this has got to go through 2 readings, as Brad indicated, it's not necessarily in our ordinance, it just refers to the other one, and we can only make things more restrictive, not less restrictive. When will this take effect if it goes into the second reading, where we're looking at that additional cost to homes? And would it only, second part is, would it only affect new home or new construction going forward?
Yes, it'll only affect new construction going forward. As far as the time that it will be effective, I would defer to Brad on that, but I'm assuming it's 20 days after publication will be the code already exists, so it's just going to be our adoption of it. We'll put it into effect. But Brad may have more insight as to when the actual date of effectiveness would be when if this ordinance is adopted.
Brad, since Dale's putting it back on you, so my follow-up question to that is if it affects new home construction and there are home builders out there building now, how does that affect new construction? Is it the day that it goes into effect, 20 days after second reading, then all of a sudden, even if they were all the way through their plans, now they have to put this in? Or is it on any new construction when they pull the building permit? How does that work?
I'll try to avoid any confusion here, the code requirement is in effect today. It was adopted in the 09 and the 14. So we've been doing it now for 6 or 7 years, you know. So nothing's going to change based on this.
So,
When does it come into
Well, the new code would come into effect 20 days after adoption, which is another reading. So, I mean,
right, so,
Yeah.
but what I'm hearing is if they have to go with these ARC, whether they do it at the breaker box or they do it on the actual circuit itself or the conduit when it's inserted, that now, today, they have to meet those requirements?
Yes.
So Mr. Logie's comments really have no effect because they're already paying for them today, correct?
that's true. I've talked to a number of electricians, and I went to the Electrical Commission meeting, like I said, and that's a valid argument that needs to be presented to the State Electrical Commission and then to the legislature to have it changed,
Yeah,
really.
I think they're just curious about the new
Yeah.
code.
The new code isn't changing. The only thing that's different in the new code is that, like what Mr. Loggy said, is that the arc fault breaker is going to be required on a 220 amp circuit. It's already required on all other circuits. So, and like I said, we've been doing that now since
No, but this code will take effect on permits that haven't been,
yeah, these would go into effect on permits issued after 20 days after its second reading.
All right, so, and I think we're finally getting to where my question was. So my question was, when this passes City Council after second reading, 20 days later, it takes effect. Any home builder that is currently building homes can put in and complete the construction without having to put in these extra additional cost. Any new building permit pulled at that point, they will have to put in the new systems.
The new system only on the 220 amp circuits. The arc fault rules are already in effect.
Okay.
They're in effect today.
So what I guess I'm just trying to, I mean, it was raised that it was gonna be $2,000 more per
Yeah.
every home when we're looking at, I'm not hearing that.
I'm
not hearing that.
What it is arc faults have gradually come into the code every adoption period. This cycle, it's required on the 220 circuits, very expensive breakers. So this code by itself is gonna increase the cost approximately $2,000 for every home that needs dryers and any 220 outlets. The code will take effect on anybody once this comes in. Truly, I mean, there's not a lot we can do about it. Unfortunately, I don't even think you can not adopt the code because you still fall under state statute. I'm doing this as an informative session to say, unfortunately, we can't do it on electrical. We want to, but what it's going to happen is, was it 28 days? Or whenever the second reading, after that period, every new building permit will require these. So every building permit after this will increase $2,000 in the cost of a house.
So Brett, and I'm just trying to get down to that, I mean, when I'm given a number, I'm trying to tie it back to, what I'm hearing is a dryer. What I'm hearing is a
All
dryer
220
is the
outlets.
change. So is it a dryer, so how many 220 outlets are in a common house?
It would depend on the house. Probably one or two if you had an electric dryer, one for the range if it was an electric range. If it was gas, you might not have one, but it'd be up to the designer of the home, not.
So if we have, on average, two, what I'm trying to get down to is each one of these new fixes is $1,000? That's the cost that's going to be attributed to the house, is each one of these arc things that have to be applied either at the breaker or at the plug is going to be $1,000 on a 220?
I'm not aware of what the costs are for the new
My
220s.
electrician told me, he goes, expect at least $1,000 from the arc faults. And then that depends on how many additional have to go into the house. And it's truly, like Brad said, it's going to depend on the house. But, again, I'm just trying to make point here to this committee. You don't have a whole lot of choice. It doesn't sound like whether you can not adopt this or adopt this. Sounds like you've got your hands tied, and unfortunately you have to send it through. But I want to make it notice that, on the stand of affordability, you can see where we're coming from every time a new code, new ordinance, whatever, is passed.
All right, thank you. just to close out my comments, I'm still not comfortable that I can really quantify the $2,000 per house by passing this, but this is first reading. I currently have no motion on the floor. Any further discussion? No. I've got a motion by Laurenti to approve, second by Armstrong. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion by Armstrong to adjourn, second by Drury. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.